Life on the hard is filled with some challenges that you might not always expect. There are, though, a couple of things that you can make sure you have that will make life on board while you're in a boatyard just a little bit less onerous. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. I'm sharing my bucket tips with you today. Yes, buckets, as in those 5-gallon things that you see all over the place. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by MantisMarine.com, maker of the Mantis Anchor, now available in models with and without a roll bar. Proven to set reliably in the most challenging bottoms, the Mantis Anchor digs like no other, making anchoring safer and boating more enjoyable. Mantis Marine brings to market practical, durable, and affordable marine products, including anchoring gear, scuba diving accessories, and a rechargeable, waterproof headlamp for hands-free lighting. Visit MantisMarine.com and see for yourself. Boatyard life. It's the most fun thing that I can ever imagine that you can possibly do when you're living on a cruising boat. And though not every single boatyard allows you to live on the boat while you're working on it, luckily, the couple of places that we've been have absolutely allowed us to live on board while we're working on the boat. It's not ideal. There's nothing wonderful about accessing your home via a ladder. There's nothing really wonderful about the fact that, no, your toilet doesn't work. At least ours doesn't. Ours is a seawater flush, so if we don't have seawater, we have no toilet. We luckily do have a refrigerator because our fridge is just 12 volt and we can access that. It doesn't have any seawater cooling or whatever. But honestly, life on the hard isn't the most fun thing ever. There are, however, 3 items you can have with you that will make life on the boatyard that much more enjoyable for you and for other people around you. Specifically, 3 buckets. Yes, buckets. 5-gallon buckets like you might find left over at a hardware store, or you can buy them, or if you're lucky enough, maybe someone has ordered something in a 5-gallon bucket and they'll give you the bucket once they're done. Or if you're cruising around, you might pick one up on the beach. But I digress. 3 essential buckets that we've found in our experience make living on the boat in the boatyard a whole lot better. 2 of these buckets limit the number of trips that you need to make up and down the ladder. And the third one, in addition to helping you limit the number of trips you need to make up and down the ladder, the third one is also a courtesy to yourself and all your boatyard neighbors. Bucket 1 is the hauling items up and down bucket. This bucket lives at the base of the ladder, ready to be filled with odds and ends that always seem to be transported up. You could substitute a canvas bag for this bucket. You might have boxes, although those are harder to deal with. I'm a believer in holding onto the ladder as I go up and down, so using 2 hands for me to carry things is really tough. If I can stuff 8 of those loose items into that bucket that's waiting at the base of the ladder, that means I have 1 hand available to hold on, and I can still carry all that stuff upstairs. If there's a whole lot of stuff to transport up the ladder, like to the deck, like during provisioning runs, the bucket can actually be hauled up by a line. Bucket number 2. The night relief bucket. This bucket lives in the cockpit after dark, and it's handy for those 2 a.m. nature calls. Sorry, TMI, but there you go. We empty this every morning by carrying it down the ladder, very, very, very carefully, by the way, carrying it down the ladder to the shore facilities and carefully pouring the contents of that bucket into the toilets there. I then can use the local hose to just rinse it out a little bit and then dump that rinsed water right back into the shore head. Is it ideal? No, but it's a whole lot better than those up and down trips, no pun intended, up and down the ladder. Bucket number 3 is the sink bucket. While yes, you can use your sink on the hard, and if you do that just by pouring your regular water down the sink, it will run down the side of the hull and pool underneath the boat that's up on stands. And the resulting puddle from that and the greasy food detritus that comes, it's kind of gross, both to look at it, but also to smell. And in fact, when we first asked about living on the boat while we were on the hard at this boatyard where we are now, the yard manager said, well, okay, you can do it, but you may not use your sink. And we said, oh, okay, even if we put a hose in the through hull and into a bucket? And he said, oh, if you're going to do that, that's fine. Being able to use the sink limits the trips up and down the ladder. It means I don't have to carry my dishes up and down in a dishpan down the ladder and back up. It also makes life aboard that much easier. The more things that I can have that are the same things that I would have when we're floating, the better as far as I'm concerned. And if I have the bucket underneath the hull with a hose that goes into the through hull right there, it means that there's no stink or mess left on the ground. That's nicer for your neighbors, it's nicer for you, and it certainly is nicer for the boatyard. And yes, that's another piece of the bucket brigade because, yeah, we have to empty it, which we do into the utility sink, which is what we would be using to do the dishes if we couldn't use our galley sink. But we do empty it every day or every 2 days, depending on how much dishwashing there has been. Life on the hard definitely is not as much fun as living on the boat when it's in the water. But I will say the buckets make life on the hard a whole lot better. I can't wait to share an anchorage with you when we don't have to be dealing with buckets in the boatyard at all, and we're just toasting our good fortune to be living a life that we both enjoy. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. If you found it helpful or useful, please share it with a friend. Leave us a review. And by all means, don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app. 2 of these episodes come out every single week. Have the most spectacular one.